kind of just answered my question, but I'll go for it anyway.
Yep.
I wanted to know how to stay open to that fear. And yeah, I feel like you really did just answer it for
No,
me.
but it's a good question. Very good question. How to stay open to the fear. The way you stay open to the fear is you focus on these qualities. So let's look.
And that's what I wanted to ask, as well as loving myself, because I was hearing you say before with the examples of the orchard and
Yep.
stuff, staying open. I mean, and I know that I'm really spirit influenced as well. So how do I stay open?
Well, let's look at each one of these and look at how it affects staying open to your fear. Remember, your fear is the main reason why, when we place fear as our God, as I spoke of yesterday, that's the main reason why we don't do these things. So because what we do is we say, that fear belongs up here in a priority list. So fear comes before love, fear comes before truth, fear comes before humility, and so forth. Once we're prepared to feel our own fear, we no longer honour fear in that regard. In other words, we no longer place it as the highest priority in our life. We no longer see it, even though we feel that it should be, we no longer will allow ourselves to continue placing it in this high priority in our life anymore. And what we do in that moment, when we love ourselves, we're actually allowing ourselves to feel the fear. That is loving yourself more. See, before, when you're denying your fear, that's not loving yourself as much, because your fear is in you, wrecking your body, wrecking your life, having all of these attraction events occur, the cause of all these negative events, and that's not loving to you in that moment. When you start allowing yourself to feel this fear, now you're loving yourself more. This is wonderful. And like God's going, at last, my daughter is letting go of some things, right? That's how God sees it. We're also in a more truthful place, because most of the time, if you think before we feel fear, most of the time we believe we have none or very little. Right? We tell ourselves, I haven't got much fear. You know, I might be afraid of, and usually we come up with physical things. Like, I'm afraid of snakes, but I don't really have much fear of emotion, I don't have much fear of people, But once we start getting more honest with ourselves, we start realising that our primary fears are actually our personal emotions. And our primary fears are not a snake or a spider or some other physical thing, but rather what's inside of us, shame and other emotions inside of us are our primary fears. So when we honour the truth of that and honour the fact that we start feeling the fear, we are now in far more harmony with God, and therefore we'll be able to feel God a lot more in that place. We're also far more humble, if you think about it. Because now, instead of reverting to anger and control and addiction all the time, which is what we use to stay away from our fear before, now we're saying, I'm refusing to go to my anger all the time. I'm refusing to go to my addictions all the time. Instead, what I'm going to do is be humble to the experience of this fear, even if it feels terrible. Even if I feel terrible for 6 months or 12 months. That's how long it takes. For myself, my primary fears took me around nearly 4 years to release. Does that make sense? So it took me nearly 4 years to go through the process of releasing most of my fears. Of course, I've been tortured and I've had all other sorts of things happen, things that you haven't had happen, so there's a chance that you will take less than that if you allow yourself to feel your fear. But if you really have faith in God, no matter how long that process takes, you will do it. And that's what I had to come to terms with. How much faith do I have with God, that God is leading me through this process to get me beyond my fear? And I realised that a lot of it depended on my will. I had to be willing to stay in this place of feeling this, rather than always trying to get myself out of it, always trying to take some kind of alternative action. Distract myself, go and do something, get some exercise, all the other things that I'll try to do to reduce the feeling of this fear. In fact, I got to the point where I had so much fear in my body that I found that I had to lay up to 4 hours a day in my bed, just flat, feel the fear in my body and just feel in a panic for that 4 hours. Right? And after I did that, and I used to do that every single day, and remember I did that for nearly 4 years. So by the time the 4 hours dissipated, the fear, I could feel the fear relieved myself from my body, and then I could get up and do some things without fear, but only then. Right? And that took around 4 hours a day for me. Now, like I said, if you've been tortured or other things have happened to you, then naturally that might be the case for you too. But it was wrecking my body so much. I was 33 years of age when I began processing fear, and everybody thought that I had Parkinson's disease. Everybody who met me. Because I would shake like this. And they would say, "What's wrong with you?" And I'd say, "Nothing." And I'd be shaking so much that everyone could see me shaking so much. And they'd all be asking me what's going on. And I didn't know what was happening at the time until I started feeling that. And then I realised that's what it's all about. That's why I'm shaking like this. Now, it took, as I said, it took some period, and particularly after I went through a lot of my memories about identity and all those kind of things, I went through another bout of it, which took 4 years. And then when I came out of that, now I feel much better, much better. I still have fears that I recognise, but now it doesn't govern my life anymore, right? Now, when you can see that if you really honour each of these qualities, right, then they will help you feel this fear. But all you have to do is compromise in one of these areas, and all of a sudden you won't be feeling fear anymore. So if you compromise by saying, "I don't want to use my will to feel my fear," bang, you will find that you won't be able to feel it anymore. Right? Or if you compromise by going, "I don't have any faith that if I release my fear, that it can actually be released. I don't have any belief in that. I don't have any belief that I can be perfect without fear." And because you don't have any faith that it's even possible, you're not even going to try. You won't even try. You'll try everything else other than that. So many of you have spent 5 years with your fear going, "What else can I do other than that?" Right? "Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll have a relationship. That'll help me get out of summer, or I'll have a bit more sex, or I'll drink a bit more, or I'll try and stay in my body, or I'll do these practices, or whatever it is that you try to do to avoid fear. I'll be busy. I know what I'll do. I'll get rid of my bed, single house over on the sunny coast that's got a lovely garden already, and I'll buy 40 acres over here, and then I'll have so much work to do that I won't even know what I'm afraid of." Right? Many of you have chosen to make that decision for that one reason, actually, right? To avoid a fear, right? And when you go through this process, and that's really not having any faith in God that you can address the fear. So when you actually allow yourself to hold on to these very positive qualities, you'll find eventually you'll get to the fear and you'll want to go through it. You want to. And every little bit you go through, there's another relief in my life. Another thing gone that I don't have to worry about ever again. Ever. In all my future. Yep. And because you're willing to feel your fear, you won't be focused on feeding your addictions. So when you hit the spirit world, when you feel terrified, instead of trying to go and get an addiction met, you go, "I'll feel my fear instead." You'll make that choice, right? And you'll be in a far better condition when you do that. Far better condition. In fact, you'll probably be in the second sphere if you get to that point while you're on Earth. Because the first sphere is all about fear. Right? It's all about fear.